My husband, unaware that my family was wealthy, humiliated them on his first visit. In the bustling city of Billings, where history and nature intertwine at every turn, lived Harper Smith, a young 28-year-old lawyer. Her hazel eyes shone with determination and intelligence, while her dark brown hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. Harper was known for her unwavering work ethic and passion for justice, traits that had propelled her to the top of her profession in a surprisingly short time. Hello, how are you, dear viewer? How are you? I hope you are enjoying the Anonymous Stories channel and learning a little. I would like to take this opportunity to ask you to subscribe, like and comment, and give your opinion. It is very important to me. Let's continue. What few knew, however, was that Harper came from an extraordinarily wealthy family. Her parents, Henry and Mia Smith, were known in financial circles as the Invisible Millionaires. They had made their fortune through smart investments and successful businesses, but they preferred to keep a low profile, living in a comfortable but modest home on the outskirts of Billings. From a young age, Helena was taught to value hard work, compassion, and humility above material wealth. Henry, a man of average height with gray hair and kind eyes, would often say, "Harper, my dear, a person's true worth is not in what they own, but in what they do for others." Mia, an elegant woman with a warm smile, would always add, "and in the love they share." These lessons were deeply ingrained in Harper. When she decided to pursue a career in law, she insisted on making her own way, refusing any financial help from her parents beyond what was needed for her education. She wanted to prove to herself and to the world that she could succeed on her own merits. On a fall morning, as golden leaves danced on the streets of Billings, Harper walked into her favorite coffee shop, Black Dog Coffee House X 10th Avenue. The rich aroma of delicious beverages like Stumptown coffee and Smith Teamaker tea filled the air, mingling with the soft hum of morning conversation. Harper headed to the counter, ordering her usual, a latte and pastries. As she waited for her order, her eyes wandered around the chic interior, which featured sleek black furniture, lush greenery, and modern light fixtures, creating an energetic atmosphere. That's when she saw him, a tall, broad-shouldered man with tousled dark hair and deep blue eyes, intently studying a sketchbook in front of him. There was something about his posture, the way his hand moved confidently over the paper, that caught Harper's attention. As if sensing her gaze, the men looked up. Their gazes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Harper felt her heart race, a sensation she hadn't experienced in a long time. The man smiled, a warm smile that lit up his entire face, and Harper couldn't help but smile back. "Your coffee, miss." The barista's voice brought her back to reality. Harper picked up her drink, hesitated for a moment, and then, on an impulse she couldn't explain, walked toward the stranger's table. "Sorry to bother you," she said, her voice softer than usual, "but I couldn't help but notice your drawings. Are you an architect?" The man looked at her in surprise, then smiled again. "Yes, I am," he replied, his voice deep and melodious. "Charlie Noah, at your service. And you are?" "Harper Smith," she introduced herself, extending her hand. When Charlie shook it, Harper felt a jolt of electricity run through her body. "I'm a lawyer." "Your drawings are amazing." Charlie blushed slightly at the compliment. "Thank you. I'm working on a project to revitalize an old square here in Billings. Want to take a look?" Harper nodded enthusiastically, and before she knew it, she was sitting at Charlie's table, engrossed in a lively conversation about architecture, law, and her vision for the future of Billings. The hours passed like minutes, and when they finally glanced at the clock, they were both surprised to see that it was almost noon. "I can't believe we spent the whole morning talking," Harper laughed, a light feeling in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. "I think I missed all my morning meetings." Charlie looked equal parts surprised and delighted. "I missed a few things too, but it was worth it. Harper, I know this may seem rash, but would you like to have dinner with me tonight?" Harper hesitated for a moment. She had rules about mixing her personal and professional lives, and normally she wouldn't accept an invitation so quickly. But there was something about Charlie, a sincerity and a passion, that drew her irresistibly. "I'd love to," she replied. Surprising herself with the quickness of her response. That night, as she prepared for dinner, Harper found herself thinking about her family and their wealth. It was a secret she guarded jealously, afraid that people would treat her differently if they knew. With Charlie, she felt an instant connection, a sense that he saw the real her. The thought of complicating that with the truth about her family made her anxious. "It's just dinner," she muttered to herself, adjusting her simple but elegant navy green dress. "There's no need to go into details about my family, yet." Dinner was magical. Charlie took her to a small family restaurant in the back alleys of Billings, a cozy place with soft lights and the aroma of home cooking in the air. They underscore 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 underscore. They talked for hours, laughing over childhood stories, sharing dreams, and discussing their passions. "You know, Charlie," Harper said at one point, her eyes shining in the candlelight, "I've always believed that architecture is about more than just building structures. It's about creating spaces that improve people's lives, that make them feel at home." Harper nodded, feeling a deep connection to her words. "That's how I feel about law. It's not just about laws and regulations, it's about helping people, about making a difference in their lives." As the night wore on, Harper found herself drawn more and more to Charlie. His passion, his kindness, his sense of humor, everything about him seemed perfect. But in the back of her mind, there was a small voice reminding her of her secret, warning her to be careful. Over the next few weeks, Harper and Charlie became inseparable. They explored the hidden corners of Billings together, discussed each other's projects, and slowly but surely, they fell in love. Harper found herself sharing things with Charlie that she had never told anyone else, except her family's secret. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. On a starry night, Charlie took Harper to the top of one of the buildings he had designed. The view of Billings at night was breathtaking, with the city lights twinkling like a sea of stars. "Harper," Charlie said, his voice shaking with emotion, "these past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. You make me want to be a better person, a better architect. You inspire me every day with your passion and your compassion." He knelt, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Harper Smith, will you do me the honor of marrying me?" Harper's heart stopped. Tears of joy welled in her eyes as she looked at the man she loved, kneeling before her, offering her a future together. For a moment, she thought of her family, of her secret, but looking into Charlie's loving eyes, she knew none of that mattered. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Charlie, I will marry you." Charlie slid the ring onto her finger, a simple but beautiful ring with a small sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. He stood and kissed her, and in that moment, Harper felt like everything was perfect. Over the next few months, Harper and Charlie planned a simple wedding ceremony. Harper resisted the temptation to use her family's resources, determined to keep things modest and meaningful. They were married in a small chapel on the outskirts of Billings, with only their closest friends in attendance. Harper invited her parents, of course, but asked them to keep a low profile. Henry and Mia, understanding their daughter's desire for simplicity, arrived in a modest car and dressed modestly. During the ceremony, as she exchanged vows with Charlie, Harper felt a pang of guilt. She was promising eternal love and honesty, yet keeping such a big secret. But looking into Charlie's eyes, full of love and trust, she was convinced that she was doing the right thing. One day, she promised herself, "When the time is right, I'll tell him." After the wedding, Harper and Charlie moved into a modest apartment in the heart of Billings. It was small but cozy, with a balcony that overlooked a city park. Every morning, they would drink coffee together on that balcony, planning their future and dreaming of the possibilities that awaited them. Life seemed perfect. Charlie continued to build his law career, while Harper worked on increasingly ambitious projects. They were young, in love, and full of hope for the future. Then, 6 months after the wedding, Charlie received an offer he couldn't refuse, a 1-year contract to lead an urban revitalization project in Oxford. It was an incredible opportunity for his career, but it meant he would have to relocate temporarily. "It's only for a year," Charlie told Harper, his eyes shining with excitement. "Oxford is just a little way away. We can see each other on the weekends. Harper forced a smile, feeling her heart sink. Sure, she said, trying to sound excited for him. This is a wonderful opportunity. You have to accept it. That night, as Charlie slept, Harper lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The prospect of a year apart frightened her, not just because of the distance, but because she knew it would be harder to keep her secret. She considered telling Charlie the truth before he left. Threw herself into her work, taking on more cases and putting in long hours at the office. On weekends, she would travel to Oxford to see Charlie, or he would come to Billings. These moments together were precious, but always too short. During this time, Harper's guilt about keeping her secret grew. Every time Charlie talked about saving for the future or worried about the bills, she felt a pang in her heart. She could easily solve all their financial problems with a phone call to her parents, but that would mean revealing the truth she had been hiding for so long. About 8 months after Charlie left, Harper was sitting in her office, looking out the window at the bustling city outside. Her phone rang. It was Charlie. Harper, her voice sounded excited over the phone. I have great news. The project is going so well that they want me to stay on for another 6 months. It's an incredible opportunity. Harper's heart sank. Another 6 months of separation. More months of secrets. She opened her mouth to express her happiness, but instead she found herself saying, Charlie, there's something I need to tell you. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Harper, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Harper took a deep breath, preparing herself to finally reveal the truth. But before she could speak, she heard a commotion in the background. Sorry, honey, Charlie said hurriedly. There's an emergency at the construction site. I have to go. We'll talk later, okay? I love you. And with that, he hung up, leaving Harper with the unspoken words stuck in her throat. That night, Harper could barely sleep. She knew she had to tell Charlie the truth, but the thought terrified her. What if he felt betrayed? What if this would destroy everything they had built together? The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and worry for Harper. She tried repeatedly to work up the courage to tell Charlie, but she always found an excuse to put it off. After the next case, she told herself. Or when he comes home next weekend. Meanwhile, back in Oxford, Charlie was completely absorbed in his project. The revitalization was gaining national attention, and he was receiving praise from all sides. But despite his professional success, he missed Harper terribly. The video calls and occasional weekends away were not enough. It was during this time that Charlie began to notice small inconsistencies in Harper's stories. Sometimes she would mention places or experiences that seemed beyond the means of a young lawyer. When he asked about them, she always had a plausible explanation, but a seed of doubt began to grow in his mind. 10 months after Charlie's departure, Harper was in her office, working late on an important case. Her phone rang, and she answered it without looking at the caller ID. Harper Smith speaking, she said absently, still focused on the documents in front of her. Harper, honey, the excited voice of her mother, Mia Smith, sounded on the other end of the phone. Lying. Your father and I are in town and I wanted to pay you a surprise visit. We're on our way to your apartment right now. Harper's blood ran cold. Mom, wait, I'm not home. I'm at the office and, don't worry, honey, Mia interrupted cheerfully. We have the spare key you gave us. We'll wait for you there. Don't take too long. Before Harper could protest, her mother hung up. Harper stood still for a moment, her heart pounding frantically. Her parents were on their way to her apartment. The modest apartment she shared with Charlie. Charlie, who had no idea of her family's true financial situation. She picked up the phone again, her hand shaking as she found Charlie's number. She needed to let him know, explain everything before. Hey, you've reached Charlie Noah. I can't take the phone right now, but leave a message and call back as soon as you can. Harper hung up without leaving a message. What could she say? Hi, honey, my millionaire parents are on their way to our apartment, and by the way, I come from an extremely wealthy family. Nope. She could talk to him in person. Throwing her belongings into her bag, Harper hurried out. Harper hurried out of the office, barely saying goodbye to her surprised colleagues. In the elevator, she tried calling Charlie again, but it still went to voicemail. As she drove through the streets of Billings, she felt like she was in a nightmare. Everything she had tried to avoid for so long was about to come flooding back in the worst way possible. She parked the car carelessly and ran into the building. When she reached the door to her apartment, she paused, taking a deep breath to laugh. She could hear voices inside, like the familiar voices of her parents. Her heart in her throat, she inserted the key into the lock and opened the door. The scene that greeted her was surreal. Her parents, Henry and Mia, were sitting comfortably on the couch in the living room, drinking tea from cups Harper hadn't even known they owned. And there, standing there, completely shocked and confused, was Charlie. "Harper!" Mia exclaimed, standing up to hug her daughter. "I'm so glad you're here. We were having a lovely chat with Charlie. Why didn't you tell me he had a career at Oxford?" Harper could barely breathe. Her eyes were fixed on Charlie, who was looking at her with a mixture of confusion, hurt, and anger. "Charlie," she began, her voice shaking. "I can explain." "Explain what exactly?" Charlie asked, her voice strangely calm. "Explain why your parents, who you told me owned a small antique shop, ended up telling me about your multiple residences and global investments. Or perhaps explain why they were surprised to see that we lived in such a modest apartment." Harper felt as if the ground was disappearing from under her feet. She looked at her parents, who finally realized something was wrong. "Harper, dear," Henry said gently. "Charlie didn't know about us?" Harper shook her head, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "No, Dad. He didn't know." A heavy silence fell over the room. Charlie spoke abruptly, reaching for his coat. "I need air," he said, his voice shaking with pent-up emotion. I can't deal with this right now. Charlie, please." Harper begged, trying to reach him. "Let me explain." But Charlie was already at the door. He paused for a moment, looking at her with pained eyes. "I thought we didn't have secrets, Harper. I thought we trusted each other." And with that, he walked out, leaving Harper alone with her parents and the crushing weight of her secret finally revealed. The silence that followed Charlie's exit was assured. Harper stood there, staring at the closed door, feeling as if her world was crumbling around her. Her parents exchanged worried glances, clearly unsure of how to react to the situation they had inadvertently caused. "Harper, honey," mine finally cut through the silence, her voice soft and hesitant. "We didn't know. Why didn't you tell Charlie about us?" Harper turned to face her parents, tears streaming silently down her face. "I wanted him to hoard me for who I am, not for the family money. I wanted to prove that I could make my own life, make my own way," Henry pleaded, placing a comforting hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Harper, we've always taught you the value of hard work and humility, but we've also taught you about honesty. Charlie seems like a good man. He deserves to know the truth." Her father's words hit Harper like a punch to the gut. She knew he was right, and it only deepened her guilt and regret. "I know, Dad," she whispered. "I made a terrible mistake. And now I can have it for myself. I have lost the most important person in my life because of this." Mia stepped closer, wrapping Harper in a tight hug. "Oh, my dear. Don't lose hope. If your love is true, there will be a path to forgiveness and reconciliation." Harper allowed herself to be comforted by her parents for a few moments, grateful for their unconditional support, even in the face of her mistake. But soon she pulled away, wiping away her tears with determination. "I need to find him," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I need to explain everything. Beg for his forgiveness, if necessary." Her parents nodded, encouraging her. "Go," Henry said gently. "We'll take care of things here. Find Charlie and make amends." Harper grabbed her keys and ran out of the apartment, her heart pounding frantically as she tried to think of where Charlie could be. She checked all the places they used to go together: the Black Dog Coffee House, where they met, the park where they had picnics on Sundays, even the architectural firm where he'd worked before he'd left for Oxford. After hours of fruitless searching, Harper was about to give up when she had an epiphany. There was one place she hadn't checked yet: the top of the building where Charlie had proposed. With her heart in her throat, Harper climbed the stairs to the rooftop. When she opened the door, she felt a mixture of relief and apprehension at the sight of Charlie silhouetted against the Billings skyline. "Charlie," she called softly, her voice shaking. He turned slowly to face her, his face a mask of conflicting emotions: hurt, anger, confusion, and, Harper hoped, a little love. "Why, Harper?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Why did you lie to me for so long?" Harper took a few tentative steps toward him, keeping a respectful distance. "I never wanted to lie to you, Charlie. At first, I just didn't mention my family's financial situation because I wanted you to know me for who I am, not for my parents' money." She paused, gathering the courage to continue. "But the more time passed, the harder it became to tell you the truth. I was afraid that you would think I didn't trust you, afraid that it would change the way you saw me." Charlie watched her closely, his face still a mix of emotions. "Harper, I love you for who you are. Rich or poor, it wouldn't change a thing. What hurts me is that you didn't trust me enough to share this part of your life with me." Tears began to stream down Harper's face again. "I know, and I deeply regret it. I should have trusted our love, our connection. I made a terrible mistake, Charlie, and I will understand if you can't forgive me. But I need you to know that every moment we spent together, every loving word I said, was genuine and true." Charlie was silent for a long moment, staring out at the city below them. Finally, he turned to face her fully. "I need time, Harper," he said softly. "This is a lot to process. I love you, but trust is the foundation of any relationship. We need to rebuild that before we can move forward." Harper nodded, her heart heavy but with a small ray of hope. "I understand, Charlie. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, ready to rebuild that trust when you're ready." Charlie gave a small nod and walked past her toward the door. Before he left, he stopped and said, "Harper, despite everything, I still love you. I just need to figure out if I can trust you again." With that, he walked away, leaving Harper alone on the terrace, weighed down by her actions and with only a faint hope of redemption. In the weeks that followed, Harper fell into a deep introspection. She took a leave of absence from work and spent her days reflecting on her choices and the reasons behind them. She also sought therapy, determined to understand why she had felt the need to hide such a significant part of herself from the man she loved. During this time, Charlie returned to Oxford to complete his project. They kept in touch minimally, mostly through occasional text messages. Each message was like a small ray of hope for Harper, a reminder that all was not lost. It was during this time of separation that Harper had an epiphany. She realized that her need to prove herself, independent of her family, came from a place of insecurity. She had always feared being judged solely by her wealth, and this had led her to hide a fundamental part of who she was. With this understanding, Harper began to work on herself. She began to open up more to her friends and colleagues about her background, facing her fear of being defined by it. In the days and weeks that followed, Harper and Charlie dedicated themselves to rebuilding trust between them. Every conversation, every moment shared was an opportunity to strengthen the foundation of their relationship, now free of secrets. Harper made an effort to be completely transparent about her life and family, inviting Charlie to get to know them better. Although he was initially wary, he slowly began to realize that behind the wealth and luxury were genuine, loving people who valued character above all else. On the other hand, Charlie also took the time to share more about himself. He told Harper about his own fears and insecurities, things he had previously kept to himself. Together, they discovered new ways to support and understand each other. One day, as they walked through the park where they often picnicked, Charlie grabbed Harper's hand and gently pulled her to sit on a bench under a tree. "Harper, since we reconnected, I've been thinking about us a lot," he began, looking at her intently. "We've been through something tough, but we've come out stronger." Harper smiled, squeezing his hand. "I feel the same way, Charlie. I've never felt as close to you as I do now." He took a deep breath before continuing. "Then I think it's time for us to take the next step." Harper arched an eyebrow in surprise. "Next step?" Charlie smiled and pulled a small ring from his pocket. It wasn't extravagant, but it reflected simplicity and good taste, just like the relationship they had rebuilt. Harper, will you marry me? Not because of what we have or don't have, but because I know that together we can face anything. Harper's eyes filled with tears, and she put her hands over her face, unable to contain her emotion. Yes, Charlie, 1,000 times yes. They hugged each other, laughing and crying with happiness. The park around them seemed to disappear as they sealed their promise with a kiss full of love and hope. The news of their engagement was greeted with enthusiasm by their families and friends, who had witnessed the evolution of their relationship. Over time, Harper and Charlie learned that true love is not perfect, but it is resilient and capable of growing even in the face of adversity. On their wedding day, as they exchanged vows in front of their loved ones, Harper and Charlie knew they were beginning a new chapter. It was not just a new chapter in their lives, but a whole new book, written with honesty, trust, and a love they now knew was unbreakable. But look at us now, Charlie said, smiling as he watched Clarice chase a butterfly. We've built something so beautiful, something I didn't even know was possible. Harper squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth and security of his presence. This was only possible because we chose to fight for what really matters. Not just for our love, but for who we are together and the impact we can have on the world. Charlie nodded, his gaze returning to his daughter. Clarice is proof of that. She's the best of both of us. Clarice ran back to them, holding a small flower she had found along the way. For you, Mommy, she said with a radiant smile. Harper bent down to pick up the flower, pulling Clarice into a tight hug. Thank you, my little one. It's the most beautiful flower I've ever received. Charlie laughed softly, bending down to hug them both. I think I'm so lucky to have the two most incredible women in the world in my life. The afternoon in the park was filled with laughter and moments of pure joy, a reflection of the life Harper and Charlie had built together, a life based on love, trust, and purpose. In the years that followed, the Smith Men Foundation continued to grow, taking Harper and Charlie to new cities and challenges. But no matter where they went, they always came back to Billings, to the small apartment where it all began, and to the park where they found their true selves as a family. Each day was an opportunity to reaffirm their vows, not just the ones spoken at the altar, but the ones that were present in every gesture, in every decision they made together. Harper and Charlie knew that life was imperfect, but they also knew that they had found something rare and precious, a love that was, above all, true. As the sun began to set, tinting the sky orange and gold, Charlie pulled Harper close. Promise that no matter what happens, we'll keep going like this. Building together, dreaming together. Harper smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. I promise, my love. Always. And so, with Sophia racing ahead of them and the future shining like the sunset, Harper and Charlie moved forward together, writing more chapters of their story, a story of love, redemption, and purpose. Softly, a family, a foundation that makes a difference, and a love stronger than ever. Harper turned to look into her husband's eyes. You know, I think I finally understand what my parents always wanted to say. True wealth isn't found in money or possessions. It's found in love, family, and the ability to make a difference in the world. Charlie nodded, pulling Harper closer. And we are truly rich, my love. In every way that matters. As they watched Clarice play, Harper and Charlie knew they had found something far more valuable than any material wealth. They had found each other, a family, and a shared purpose. And that, they knew, was the greatest wealth of all. At this point, dear viewers, we would like to pause our story to thank you for following along with us this far. We're curious to know where you're watching this video from. Leave a comment with the city or country you're watching from and let us know what you think of the story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next exciting stories. Now, let's wrap up the story. Years passed, and the Smith Foundation became a model of effective philanthropy and urban transformation. Harper and Charlie had expanded their projects to several cities in England and were beginning to explore international opportunities. Clarice, now 10, had grown up watching her parents balance their careers with their work at the foundation. She had inherited Harper's compassion and Charlie's creativity, and she often accompanied them on project visits. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, the family decided to have a picnic in the same park where it all began. Clarice ran ahead, chasing butterflies, while Harper and Charlie walked hand in hand, carrying the picnic basket. "Mommy, Daddy, look!" Sophia shouted, pointing to a group of children playing on a new playground. "Your foundation built this, didn't it?" Harper and Charlie exchanged proud smiles. "Yes, honey," Harper replied. "This playground is part of our neighborhood revitalization project. And look at all the families who are enjoying it," Charlie added. "It's amazing how a small project can bring so much joy." They sat on a nearby bench, watching Clarice join the other children on the playground. Helena rested her head on Charlie's shoulder, feeling a surge of gratitude. "You know, Charlie," she said softly, "sometimes I wonder what our lives would be like if I hadn't made that mistake years ago, if I had been honest about my family from the beginning." Charlie kissed the top of Harper's head. "I believe we would have gotten here anyway, my love. Maybe by a different path, but here. Because deep down, that's who we are. You've always been compassionate and dedicated to making a difference, and I've always been passionate about creating spaces that improve people's lives. Together, we were meant to be together." Harper smiled, feeling tears of happiness forming in her eyes. "You're right. I think it's not the path we take that matters, but where we end up and who we're with." At that moment, Clarice came running back, her hair disheveled and her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mommy, Daddy, I have an idea. What if we build playgrounds like this everywhere the foundation works?" Harper and Charlie laughed at their daughter's excitement. "That's a great idea, honey," Charlie said, ruffling Clarice's hair. "How about we discuss it during our picnic?" As they spread out the blanket and began to pull food from the basket, Harper looked at her little family and felt her heart overflow with love. She thought about how her life had changed in the past few years, from a young lawyer hiding her true identity to a confident woman living authentically and making a difference in the world. Charlie took her hand, as if he could read her thoughts. "I'm so proud of us, Harper. Of what we've built together, of the family we've created, and of the lives we're changing." Harper squeezed her hand back. "Me too, my love. And you know what? I think this is just the beginning of our story." Clarice, munching on a sandwich, looked curiously at her parents. "What story, Mommy?" Harper smiled, pulling her daughter close. "The story of how love, honesty, and the desire to do good can change the world, honey. And it's a story we continue to write every day." As the sun began to set over Billings Park, tinting the sky with shades of orange and pink, the Smith-Thompson family continued their picnic. They discussed ideas for future projects, laughed at family jokes, and enjoyed the simple joy of being together. And so, dear viewers, we come to the end of this touching story. A story that reminds us that past mistakes don't have to define our future, that honesty and love can overcome any obstacle, and that each of us has the power to make a difference in the world. We hope this story touched your hearts as much as it touched ours when we told it. Always remember, true wealth lies in the love we share, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave. Thank you for following us on this exciting journey. Don't forget to leave your comments on what you thought of the story and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. Until next time.